Recording in progress.
So welcome everyone to our My Self-Reliance and Food Storage Zoom training. Tonight is all about getting off grid, and some of you may be thinking about what would it be like to get out of urban living and getting off grid. And so tonight we're going to take you through some of the things that you need to be thinking about and preparing for. I did send out a video to watch before this, which would help set your mind up for this conversation. And so if you haven't had a look at that video, you can go back into the My Self-Reliance group and you'll see that video in there. It really is a good one that covers this really nicely in about 7 to 9 minutes, so you can watch that. But tonight is really applying some of those things that are covered in that video. So I'm just going to share with you my screen. Okay, so now let's go through this a little bit step by step, and I'm going to assume most people have not seen that video, but if you have, you can you can write yes in the chat. Okay. All right. I love this concept of getting off grid because it's the ultimate test in self-reliance. And being self-reliant for me covers all aspects of preparation, but also health and mindset and relationships. So we're going to look at all those things as a whole. And it really takes good planning. So any good holiday takes great planning, but being off grid takes the ultimate in planning. Nevertheless, things don't always go the way that you think that they're going to go. So having a great plan, but also having a good backup plan is essential. Or 3 or 4 backup plans. Okay. So let's first of all look at the pros and the cons. What about the pros? So getting off grid means that you are in the great outdoors. They say that if you are 7 days out in camping, that you can actually reset your body off the digital mainframe that we seem to run our life on, and every year we should actually do a good 7-day reset out in the country just to balance. So it really is creating independence and freedom, and getting to support yourself. So you don't really have anyone else telling you what to do or telling you how to do it. It's all about you and the way that you want to create it. And you can often offset the cost of living when you go off grid. So what do you have to think about? Leaving your cozy comforts, so your conveniences, because living off grid is anything but convenient. And when we live in a fast-paced society where we're used to having things at our fingertips and having things come quickly and immediately to us, it does take a mindset shift. It is a lot of hard work and also rewarding as well, but you have to be prepared for it. I think one of the things that I was thinking about as one of the main concerns would probably be your dental care. Getting someone that's equipped with the right tools off grid for your dental care might be a bit tricky. So that's one of the things that you want to consider, and also medical supplies. So a lot of we can talk about first aid kits and doing your general medical and even herbal remedies. But I have a son who's type 1 diabetic, and without insulin, then we're very, concerned for him. So you might need to have those sorts of concerns for yourself. So whilst the startup costs can be great in the beginning, they can balance out over time. Okay, so let's look at the 10 things that you need to consider first of all. Number 1, when you're first getting started off, you're going to need somewhere to stay. So a tent or a caravan is a really great way to quickly get yourself set up whilst you are establishing yourself in for more long term, if long term is what you're intending. Okay. A source of food storage while you're setting up. Okay, so you think, okay, well, I'm going to live off the land, but living off the land takes time, and so you want to start with your own food supplies whilst you're getting going. Number 3, water. Sourcing water can be one of the things that I actually found the most difficult when we were doing our disaster weekend, was I was so used to just turning on the tap. And so being able to have an easy water source is one of the things that that you want to really think about when you're moving off grid. So storing water as well, and then storing it so that it doesn't go green and mossy. Number 4 is some energy. So starting off with a generator is a great way to have immediate power, but for the longer term, then the solar energy is going to set you up much better, because if you're using a generator, it's going to take fuel. You might be able to run things very quickly off of a generator, but then you're always going to have to go back to town and get fuel to restock your generator. So having a good solar power is actually better in the long run. Okay. A heavy vehicle for transportation. So when we're getting started up and moving around on the land, your general run around town kind of a vehicle doesn't really cut the mustard. Getting things to the property in the first place does take a bit of heavy vehicle transportation, and so that is a consideration to how you're going to get stuff onto the land. Okay, the next thing is our protective clothing and sturdy footwear. So if you're living off grid, you got to think of the conditions, the weather, the climate, either for sun and getting sunburned, or if you brush, working in the Australian bush, then you're going to need long sleeves and protective clothing, maybe for the cold, maybe for the other elements, the jobs that you're going to be doing on the land. And also sturdy footwear, because you're going to go through regular trainers faster than anything. So maybe more something like boots, hiking boots, gum boots for wet weather. You're going to go through footwear faster on the land, and so having a backup pair is super, super important. I noticed that when I went into Kmart the other day with what is said in this space stays in this space. When I got into Kmart with my fake green tick, I was cheering, but I also looked on the shelves and there was barely any sizes for my daughter in the size that I was looking for her. So I did grab some extra sizing up, 2 sizes up, because I thought, if the shelves are bare now and I don't get a chance to go back and shop again, I'm grabbing it now. So, and knowing that kids go through footwear fast anyway, then making sure that I've got a few extra backup pairs for them is super, super important. Okay, of course you're going to need your sleeping gear, but also because you're going to want to be comfortable. So think about not just having a sleeping bag, but what are you going to sleep on? Are we sleeping on the floor? Are we sleeping on a mattress? Are we sleeping on a blow-up? So lots of considerations there as to for how sleeping arrangements. And then tools. This is very general, tools and gear. But if you're building on the land, then you can't build with, you know, your pocket knife and a flint. You know, you need actual tools so that you can erect things and get your, maybe your outhouse built. You know, thinking about what you're going to need to create a long-term living environment. In one of the videos that I watched, a headlamp was one of the things that he recommended every day. He uses his headlamp, and he's well established in his property. But, you know, when you want to go to the bathroom at night, you know, you can't just switch on a light and there's the light. And no, but having a handy headlamp so that you don't have to use your hands to, you know, you hold the torch and then find your way around is super helpful. Number 9, first aid and medical herbs. So thinking about not just having your first aid kit, but making sure that you have, you know, having a handy Panadol, which I never use, but invariably if you can't get to the chemist one of the days, then you're going to wish that you had them and you had your stock of medicines or herbal remedies, or you know, I could talk for days about herbal remedies, having whatever those things that you need for your situation and for your family available. And then number 10, fuel, so that you can work your generator. And I kind of left number 10 was a little bit open. There's a few other things that we could think about a number 10. And maybe you've thought about something that I haven't thought about that you might pop in as the 10 things that you need. They're my suggestions. Sharpening stones for your axes or knives, very good. Shovel, absolutely, that would come under tools. Lovely. Any giving my source for the fake green tick. Definitely, I'm just looking at the comments there. And yes, composting. So thinking about how we grow the things on the land, you might need to spend a bit of time sorting out the soil so that it's fertile, so that you can grow. So fertilizer, yes, absolutely. And if you're not digging a pit, then maybe you're turning a compost toilet into a way that can start to fertilize. Okay. Now, a lot of people in videos will tell you about how to move off grid, and they're thinking about doing that as a couple or as a family. But I want to just talk now about doing it as a community, and the difference that when you're living in a community as opposed to if you're going at it alone with your family. And so there is a few differences. So one is when you're going at it alone with your family, you get to do it however you want to do it with your family, and you know, you're relying on each other. Okay? But when you go off grid as a community, there are some really good upsides to it, but there's also some things that you have to really think about. Okay. If you're in a community, you might be in a tight space. We don't have walls. All right? As a community, generally, you're not You're not, you might be, and I know there are some off-grid communities who are building in Queensland, and maybe northern New South Wales, and they are looking at setting up so that they have property and that you have a bit of distance in the property. Okay, so you might be a little fair way away from the next group, and then you do have your own, space and all those good things. And especially if you're buying into a community like that, then you might very well have that option. But what if you have somebody in your community who's maybe different to you? For instance, what if they're playing music and you're not appreciating it? It might not be your style. It might not be the time of day that you can appreciate it. How are you going to interact with that person? What kind of communication would you have that would you set up in that community so that that you can work together? And if I skip down to kind of the next one, looking at the culture of the community, looking at the rules that you would create as a community, and ultimately you would want to work together to create that harmonious space so that everyone can agree and everyone can work together. So how would that look? How would you set that up? How would you have those conversations, and where would the bottom line, the bottom line, who would that land with, right? Now, what if you're having an argument with your spouse, and maybe that's that's a common thing in the privacy of your own home. Sometimes we love to just thrash things out, but maybe in this space it might be a bit open. People can hear you. How are you going to handle that situation? So working together to accomplish the goals of the group. So, this is where we really learn to play with others well. And sometimes, in lockdown, our kids haven't had that ability to be able to socialize and to be able to work things out with others. And so off-grid community living is perfect. And I always say it takes a village to raise a child. And having kids be able to grow up with other kids is a brilliant way for them to learn. So there are some upsides of benefits of community living. You get to share responsibilities. Okay, so not all the tasks are going to fall on you to complete every day. You can utilize your own skills. You can put up your hand to say, hey, this is where I'm good. This is what I will take on doing. Maybe you're an educator. Maybe you're going to take on planning for the kids that are in your community. Right, I'm going to take on educating them Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or the other educator is going to take on educating them Tuesday, Thursday. You get to share out those rather than trying to be all things to all people. So I love that in this chat we've got Michael who's talking about guitars. So how cool that you've got people with skills that you've got that social variety. You've got different people to talk to and mingle with and learn from, and you've got people with different skill sets that bring that variety and that entertainment and that joy. So as we learn how to get on with people who may be different from us, then that's a joy as well, because you get to improve those interpersonal and communication skills. And anyone can be an island and live on their own, but it really takes some skills to live in a community and thrive as a community. But the best thing is that we learn from each other and we increase our knowledge as we share our skills and become one. So there's some of my thoughts that I wanted to share with you, and I often leave some of these questions a little bit open-ended so that we can now have a conversation with them, because everyone's situation is a little bit different. Everyone comes with their own thoughts and their own circumstances, and so there's in prepping and all of preppers' plans, your emergency plan is only things that we can give you to think about, and then you have to go away and create them yourself. So I'm now going to turn it over to the group, and if you're watching this on record, then thank you so much for watching, and if you can join us next time live, this is where all the fun really starts happening in the Zoom, is when I press stop on record, and then I turn it over to the conversation to the groups, and we go into our breakout rooms. So please do join us live if you can, 8 o'clock on a Tuesday, and also jump on our community chats where more of the conversation is developed there as well. So I'm just going to press stop, and thank you for watching. And also you can find us on the website myselfreliance.com.au, and I'll put that in the chat. And you can also fill in the poll. If you haven't filled in the poll yet, if you go to www.myselfreliance.com.au, there is a poll in there, and that will fill in that poll, and that will help us to create more content for you that that you want to learn about. So thanks everyone for watching.